On to item 6.1, Emeryville Center of Community Life Project.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, let me get on this. Okay. All right, thank you, Mayor Asher and Council. We are here tonight to present to you the joint occupancy agreement and the Turner construction contract for the Emeryville Center of Community Life. So two actions that are requested tonight from you. One is to adopt the resolution on the JOA between the Emory Unified School District and the City of Emeryville. And then secondly, to also approve the resolution on the facilities lease and construction provisions between Emory and Turner Construction. So just for the record, I know we have been here before and gone through the history, but just to put it all into one place here, because you're approving everything in one place. Going back to 2002, and I've been working on this project now for 13 months. I know that there are many people in this room who've been working on this for almost 13 years. Going back to 2002 with the original lease, where the city agreed to lease the portions of the secondary school for the city's rec program for the 40 years with the $1.5 million payment to the city for the use of the pool, the field, and the gym. That then went on to 2003 when the concept of the ECCL was born, where the city and the district started to plan this idea of this multi-purpose facility where everything would be on the one, in the one location. Right now, there were the existing agreements. There was the MOU number 1 back in January of 2010, which then morphed into MOU number 2 in April of 2011. That extended the original lease off to the year 2101 in exchange for another agreement of an additional $2.25 million. The first million of that was paid back in July of 2011, and then the remainder, the 1.25, is assumed to be, it's subsumed in the JOA that's before you tonight. So the council packet, I believe, is almost about 600 pages. I don't want to get into it page by page. This just gives you what just the chapter summary of the agreement.
Ready to stay the night.
They may be burned into some people's brains here, but I'll walk through each of these attachments at a high level. We do have representatives here from the district, from Swinnerton, who is the owner's rep for the project, from Turner, and also the architects that can answer more specific questions. So starting off with attachment A of the agreement, this is just the property description. That's a fairly old diagram there, but it just lays out the legal description of the site and defines the property. Attachment B is the city's sublease to the district. You all approved this back last July, and this allowed the district to move forward with the abatement activities that it is finishing up now. As part of the JOA, the district will be leasing the entirety of the ECCL project site to Turner Construction, and we'll get into that. Which is attachment C. And this begins when the sublease ends. The district will lease the majority of the site and the project to the city, except for this district office, the admin offices in the K8 and 912 buildings. And the reason why, and we've talked about this before, why the city would be leasing the majority of the site. This allows additional flexibility in the shared use agreement. The city has less restrictive requirements to enter into leases with third parties. We're not required to offer it to a charter school before leasing. And then I've heard this mentioned before, it also permits serving of alcohol for third-party rentals, and namely wedding receptions. Attachment C, this lays out the term of the agreement. It's 66 years. It's the maximum allowable term under the state ed code. And the city has the right to terminate the lease anytime following the 5th year. At that time, the city would be obligated to walk away from the $21 million that it has put into the project, and any deposits that we have made into the capital replacement fund would also remain with the project. We would also be required to put the multi-purpose room back into the condition that it could be, than it was, I guess, in the beginning of the...
Yes, we have the right to take over the multi-purpose room and turn it into a standalone rec facility.
There you go.
And if we did that, and then we terminated, we have the obligation to put it back to its original condition.
Great, thanks. Okay, attachment D, this is the finance agreement and sets forth obligations on both the cost of the construction and then also the development and ongoing obligations of the project. The ECCL project is being financed with both city and district bond funds. We have $25 million in total of former RDA bond proceeds, of which about $21 million remains to be contributed. And this includes, as I mentioned before, the 1.25 that's remaining in the lease from MOU 2. The district issued just over $65 million in bonds through their measure, as approved through Measure J. The finance agreement calls out what project costs are eligible or non-eligible. I won't get into all of those now. Goes through in detail the disbursement of the funds, specifically the successor agency bond funds, and then has very specific limitations on the city and district funding obligations. The governance agreement is attachment E. This lays out the governance committee, which consists of the city council and the 5 school board members. The administrative committee, which is the school superintendent and the city manager. And then there are also 2 subcommittees that are described in the agreement. One is the program subcommittee, and then the other one is the operations and maintenance subcommittee. And the duties of each of these committees is laid out in detail, and we can answer those questions if you have them. Attachment F, this is the operations, maintenance, and shared use attachment. And by April 1st of each year, the admin committee will approve a use matrix, so how we're going to be using the facilities. We'll coordinate and manage the operations, maintenance, capital replacement, and shared use. The agreement also creates 2 funds. One is the operations and maintenance fund, and then there's also the capital replacement fund. The O&M fund, by May 1st, the governance committee will approve what's called the O&M percentages, meaning which proportion of the overall O&M annual costs each party is going to be covering. And by May 1st, the governance committee will also make a budgetary recommendation to the city council. Ultimately, the council will be adopting that as part of the annual budget process. Each party will deposit 1/12 of its share into the O&M budget, and the responsibility for maintaining the account is called out to initially be with the district, but we can always change that as we go along if necessary. Lastly, the capital replacement fund, we've developed in conjunction with MAC 5 a 50-year, estimated 50-year capital replacement schedule, and looked at amortizing that over time. Each party will be required to make annual contributions into that fund, and it will ensure that there'll be funds available when we need to make major capital improvements. O&M cost allocation, we've gone into this in maybe painful detail in the past. Staff over the last, I would say, year and a half has looked at the programming of all of the space and looked at it on a per hour basis, per day, per hour, and which party was going to be using that space, and came up with some estimates of these initial O&M percentages. And when we looked at that, we kind of took two different approaches. One was if we just take our existing rec programs today, as they exist today, and we pick them up and we move them into the new facility, what percentage of the overall facility would that represent? And that would be about 18% of the programming space. And then we also looked at, well, you know, the idea is that we'll be growing our program over time, and in fact, I think the 18% in the last year has probably gone up, maybe even a little bit, because our programming is going up faster than we even anticipated. But we looked at, you know, the quote-unquote maximum programming and what that would represent, and that looks to be about 29 or 30% of the overall facility. Which would mean that the district is responsible for, you know, between 70 to 82% of the annual costs in those two scenarios. Okay, attachment G, this is the design and construction. Goes into detail about the construction drawings. It sets forward, you know, the enforcement of the design review and conditions of approval. The construction date is, it's supposed to be completed by June 1st of 2016. We also lay out in there a process for approval of contracts over $85,000. Everything under $85,000 will come to the city manager and the city attorney, in addition to the school district. Anything over $85,000 will come to you all, in addition to the school board. So we made sure that that control was in place. Attachment H is just general conditions. And then I'll get to the Turner construction agreement. The total agreement, it's $58.6 million. It's a guaranteed maximum price. It does include about $2.5 million in value engineering. When the city and the district finally got the DSA approved drawings and all of the information back from revised quotes from all of the subs, we had about a $3 million hole. And so with Swinnerton, we went through a pretty lengthy value engineering process. We had 3 representatives from the city and 3 representatives from the district in order to come up with this $2.5 million, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Emory did approve both the JOA and the Turner construction agreement. I believe it was on Monday evening, and with a vote of 4-0. They had 1 member absent. So like I mentioned, the value engineering process with the 3 stakeholders from both the district and the city, we went through in painful detail a long list of items that could possibly be removed from the Turner contract. Working with the architects and Swinnerton, went through a consensus-based approach, meaning the city did have veto power over some of the items, and there were things that the district cared, you know, a lot more about. And so we went through this and came up, I think, with a, you know, it's always painful, but I think the $2.5 million that's in there, it was with the intention of, you know, 1, preserving the programming, and then also making sure that we weren't compromising the building for the long term. The contract milestone schedule is listed in the contract. You can see there the gym and the pool we are going to have done by next summer. The high school, the substantial completion is supposed to be done next November, with the final by the end of the year. And then the complete project, as I mentioned before, is June 1st of 2016, but we're trying to have substantial completion in March of 16. As part of this process, with Swinnerton and the district and city staff, we went through a great deal of due diligence on the project budget. And it was going back through a lot of work that had been done over the years, but really trying to bring all of that into a much more conventional format. and confirming all of the funding sources amounts, closing out last fiscal year, looking at all the project costs to date, how much was left over. There were a lot of revisions of cost to complete on some of the items that were outside of the Turner contract, and we were able to prepare a detailed tracking document, which is in a much more standard state format that the district is used to preparing. So as part of that, this is probably a table that you've seen before. This is the total funding sources for the project, the $90 million project, about $65 million from the school bonds. There's your MOU 1 and MOU 2, and then the $21.2 million of the city's RDA bonds. We also have a grant, a $600,000 FEMA grant that is included in this. I will note, the city did receive a housing-related parks grant of about $470,000, which we will go towards this project, but it will just supplant an equivalent amount of our bond funds in there. So it'll free up about $470,000 of our bond funds that you can use for other projects. This is a little bit difficult to read, but I just wanted to make the point here of just, how detailed and the budget is, and, the city's involvement in this. This lays out for you the Turner contract. I will note there's a 2.5% contingency included in that 58.6. On top of that, you'll see the third row down, there's also an additional $1.9 million that is for the overall project contingencies outside of that. The city has included its Phase 1 art requirement of about $300,000. There's another 1.2 for FF&E. You can go through some of those. Legal and professional consultants, I will share with you, this has been something the council has asked us to look at publicly, all of the professional consultants that were included in the budget. And with Dr. Rubio coming in and looking at taking a fresh look at this, there's several items in there that have been zeroed out. And so we were able to free up additional dollars for the project, which has been great. And then you can see just their bond issuance and other costs, which add up to the $90 million. This is the chart we showed you at city schools, and you will continue to see this. Just shows the progress on the key project milestones. And you can see in there the revised dates that we have for the completion of the facility and the move-in. So as I mentioned at the top, we are looking for you to adopt the two resolutions. One is on the joint occupancy agreement between the city and the school district, and then also to approve the facilities lease and the construction provisions between Emory and Turner. And with that, we have all of the representatives here, like I mentioned, from Turner, Swinnerton, the architect, the school district, and then also all of our city staff that has been working on this.
Thank you. Okay, let's go ahead and hear from the public at this time.
Okay, well, this whole process has been like sausage making, basically. So we have Turner Construction. I want everybody to know, I want to take this opportunity to have everybody realize that Turner Construction was the single largest contributor to Measure J, which was the plebiscite whereby this whole thing got off the ground, where the voters agreed to do school bond money for this project. And it's sort of sad that the construction company that wound up getting the contract is the single largest contributor. The second largest contributor was the bond writing firm, and it was just those who stand to profit from this were those that funded the Measure J, which is a sad, but a sad and a telling thing. Okay, back last, I believe it was November, there was an epic council meeting whereby it was first revealed to us, the people, that the O&M, the operating and maintenance budgets for this project, we are not going to realize the savings. Instead, it was going to be a huge increase. And there was guffaws and gasps coming from the 5 council members because, as everyone here will remember, we were sold operating and maintenance budget savings due to consolidation. And that was driven home very succinctly, especially during the Measure J election season, campaign season. And so there's rumors now that we're going to be spending much more on operating budget and maintenance budget, but we've never gotten accountability. They've been told, that's never been revealed to us. What we want to be able to compare apples and apples here, and we want to find out, did we get our savings that was widely advertised, and we just got a rumor that we're not getting a savings, instead it's going to be a lot more. I'd like to see an accountability there. I feel creepy for the city to get into a partnership agreement with the school district, and this is a government agency that fought us on the bike ped path, that's in our general plan. They fought us tooth and nail on that, and then they ultimately won by very kind of dubious means. That's creepy to me that we would, be entering into an agreement with an agency that behaves like that. I don't think we should be rewarding that kind of behavior. In addition, these partners of ours, the school district, 73 people signed.
Thank you. Time is up.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else on this item? No? Okay.
I'd like to move the
Dr.
resolutions.
Rubio. Let's let Dr. Rubio speak.
It's only a $90 million job.
Yeah.
I
I mean, come on. I just want to say, again, I said something similar when I first arrived, that I was excited to be here. And I was just glancing at the preamble, which is on page 5, and the big elements here of the project. And I'm noting that item 3 of the preamble on page 5, the different pieces of core pieces of our project about community engagement. It sounds like there's been a lot of engagement over time in different pieces, and certainly wellness. But I really am attracted to this statement around partnerships, that the parties are committed to optimizing broad community resources matters in order to best serve the students, families, adults, and seniors of the Emeryville community. So, I love that this is such a different project in a way, because I see it as something that seniors, students, families, and parents can all look to and know that there are resources there for them. It really is, I think, going to be a beacon for that. So I just want to say thank you for having us tonight, and glad to be here.
I second your motion, Ruth.
Thank you. I'll just say in moving these, this is a long time coming, and I publicly want to thank our staff who went over this with a fine-tooth comb and spent many hours right up to the end to satisfy their questions. And I also want to thank Kurt Brinkman, who can understand a lot of the materials that we've been given, and appreciate your expertise that you're bringing to the council in order to do that. So my motion stands. It's been seconded.
Your motion is for the joint operating
For both
agreement?
resolutions.
Could we have a voice vote and take them one by one?
Can we do them separately? And
Yes, let's take them
Separately,
one by one. Any other comments? Yeah, go ahead, Jennifer.
Roll call.
Yeah, I just have a few comments. I've been a somewhat cautious supporter of this project and sometimes critic, but I am pleased to move these resolutions forward this evening. And there's some reasons I want to share with the public why I feel good about it at this point and about ECCL. The first one is what's happened over the last year, which is with our new city manager, Sabrina Landreth. She has scrutinized, and she's directed staff to be scrutinizers as well of the costs and the designs. I feel like it took this project to a different level where the city was more invested in it and paying attention. She insisted that city staff sit in at the meetings as equal partners with the school district as these decisions have been hammered out. If you recall, a year ago, we were in a hurry to pass this very joint occupancy agreement that we're working on tonight. So it's interesting interesting that we had this extra time, and I feel like it was well used. So it increased my personal trust of the process and of the product that we will get. And secondly, it's interesting, as the economy has improved and there are kind of better projections, I guess, for both the city. We were in my first 3.5 years on the council was all about cutting things in our budget. I feel that really Emeryville deserves and that we can afford this better facility in a way that our mentality was very different in the first few years that I served. And I'm eager to see the community center come to life and really provide the services that I think we need in this town. We may not know that we need it or that it's been an absence, but I think we will surely enjoy and see the benefits of it once it's here. So I want to respond to one particular question that Brian Donahue raised this evening, which is that when we first saw the operations and maintenance agreements, I think there was a bit of a surprise that suddenly we were seeing greater costs and not a savings that we had hoped for in the combining of the school and the city's facilities. But I feel fine about that now, and I'll tell you why. Number one, I think the costs went down because we did look at them carefully and came to more realistic, I hope, realistic costs. But secondly, it was our staff's diligence in explaining how the programs are truly expanding and how, yes, we spend very little right now on operations and maintenance, but look what we get for it too. It's just not good enough. And these expansions, I think, we are deserving of, and I think that the possibilities are really much bigger. So I feel okay with the operations and maintenance and the way it's been worked out between the two. I want to point out, and I'm glad that you raised the timeline. I feel like it's a little hard just with the dates, that the way they were set, but the timeline has been changed because of delays and other things. And so I don't know if the sign's not up there anymore saying coming fall of 2015, I don't think, but just to know that the high school anyway won't be able to be there. It's hard to imagine a year from now that a high school would be opening there. So I think it's good to be realistic and make sure the public knows as well. I have pushed hard and hope for the best possible bicycle and pedestrian treatment around this facility. I'm not satisfied with the fact that the general plan path has not been included in this phase of the project, and I feel that Emeryville is doing a great job actually improving bike and ped treatments all over town, and it would be a real shame to have this, our jewel, that we've worked on so hard, not include those. But I'm just hoping that either there will be additional funds as we see the economy improving, and I'm actually kind of curious how the school district feels about that. There was Measure J allowed up to, I think, $95 million in bonds, and we only actually went up to 60-some million. So whether there's a possibility of seeing additional funds at some point that could really help support that facility as well, the bike ped path. And I have one other question, really. Actually, I have two questions. One is for Emory Unified. I don't know if Dr. Rubio could answer this, but it's specifically about the community benefits agreement, which is an appendix to the agreement that we're voting on this evening. And the community benefits agreement spells out a number of local hire issues, provisions for the contractor to follow, as well as engaging youth in the project. And I'm curious, some of these seem to be timely in that it talks about the beginning of construction and having 11th graders who are involved in the project for the 2 years, et cetera. I'm curious, maybe not the school district, but someone else could answer whether those agreements have been moving forward, if they're on track.
My name is Bob Diaz. I'm with Turner Construction. I'm the project executive, and I was here 5 years ago when we submitted our qualifications for this project. I'm very happy to be here tonight. With regards to the CBA, the Community Benefits Agreement, we have moved forward with that. In terms of engagement of students, Jabril Portlock right here has been working in our office for a year
Great.
and actually has been working on the project. So we're very happy with that. We intend to keep that going. He's going to go off to college this year, so we'll continue to incorporate that sort of engagement. With regard to local business participation, the CBA defines a local impact area, which is a few zip codes in Berkeley and Oakland and Emeryville. In addition to that, the Green Corridor, which is the local East Bay communities.
Okay.
Right now, we're predicting about a 45% portion of the job goes to local businesses, which is beyond what we originally expected. So we're very happy with that.
There's also the mention of a meeting with the Cypress Mandela training facility.
We our Community Affairs Director, Elena Anaya, sits on a number of boards, including pre-employment organizations like Cypress Mandela, and we work with them quite a bit and have helped place a lot of their people on jobs, on our jobs. So we'll continue to with that effort.
Great, thank you. So it sounds like, and I don't know how that is communicated to us, except in this very
well, we will be updating the project staff monthly on local business participation. In addition, we'll be tracking local hire through a web-based system where we can track by zip code of worker. And then quarterly, we'll be producing a written report for you. But at any time during that process, if you need information, we can certainly get it to you through probably John Baker at Swinnerton, who will be the district's project manager.
Great, thank you.
You bet.
And if I may, we also are looking at what our ongoing reports are going to be to city schools, so we can incorporate that into it.
Great. It's just nice to know that what we put in place is actually happening. My final question, and this may go to the folks from Swinnerton, I'm not sure, but it was in one of our whereases at the end of one of our resolutions. It mentions that we see that these are commercially reasonable rates for the area, the fees that are being charged. And I just wanted to turn to an expert on that and hear whether that is true. Who can answer that for me? Turner can't answer that. Sorry.
Mark Cyberlick with DSK Architects, one of the Nexus firms. I'll speculate.
Okay.
Are you talking about, is that regarding fees, like utility fees, connection fees?
No, I think it was construction. I can pull it up again.
Oh, construction's to, the fees to Turner.
Yes.
Well, we weren't in those negotiations, but I do know that through the serious number of meetings, which we weren't at, but I think Bob was bruised up quite a bit coming out of those as we tried to get the project back on budget. So the VE issues, also all of their soft costs, is with the term I'll use, came way down. So I think that's what you're referring to. So yeah,
I guess so. I just know that it says that I'm supposed to know that they're commercially reasonable rates, and I feel like that's beyond my expertise. So I'm assuming that staff took care of that, but I just wanted to kind of call it out.
I would just add that it's very helpful that we have Swinnerton managing this project, because they're very familiar with certain percentages that are appropriate and not appropriate for things like indirect costs, including contingency. And what Swinnerton did, and working with Turner, and there was some bruising, I apologize to Bob, but it was important for us, the district, as your partner, as well as Swinnerton as our manager of the project, to make sure all costs were as tight as possible. So there were some definite requests of Turner Construction to even go a little bit beyond what I think Turner would consider as reasonable. Those efforts were made, and Swinnerton has, I think, done a very good job appropriately making sure that those percentages were appropriate in the beginning stages, as well as that a lot of effort was made again to bring those costs down so we could do our best to not have as much value engineering needed. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Kurt, did you want to speak?
Yeah, I'd like to say something. For somebody that's been around for a long time, I remember Tony's vision back about 11 years ago, and that was when we were just going through bankruptcy. And actually, one of the reasons we went through bankruptcy is because at one time we had 3 schools in this town, and we couldn't afford to run 3 schools. And so the vision was to bring everybody together one site, but also really the vision was to improve the education of all the students here and the parents, everybody that lives in this town, because if you improve the education, you don't really need to worry about the minimum wage going up because there's a correlation between education and wages. So that was always the idea, and also going back to the Wellness Center. But I really have to take my hat off to the whole team because I never thought you guys could hit the number. And I'm in construction, I see what's going on out there. Right now, you can't find people to work. If you drive through San Francisco, you see high-rise cranes. The market has never been this good as what it is right now. It's probably the worst time ever to build this building. But to build it for what we have and to have it being built for that money, it's a job well done to all of you people out there. And I really appreciate for all your efforts that went into this job. And if you review the documents, you can see what staff has done and the whole team has done and all the time, effort that went into this. It's going to be a wonderful day. It's going to be a great place. It's going to be something that will really define Emeryville going forward. So thank you very much.
Call the question.
I have something I'd like to say first, a few comments. I want to say that the additional time that we've had to talk about and review this project has been important to me in order to think more deeply and consider the motivations of my fellow electeds, which I appreciate. Kurt spoke about the difficulty of running 3 school sites. Of course, that has to do with the fact that the state of California does not appropriately fund their schools. And I don't think that we should consolidate everyone onto one school site because of that. I think it's actually short-sighted. There are some things that I want to highlight out of this agreement that are important to me. I think the guaranteed max contribution from the city to understand that there is that limit to what we are going to give to this project is important, and that our city staff will be reviewing all of the contracts that are coming through. It's also very important to me that our high schoolers get a different facility. The last several years in Emeryville, we've really been kind of experimenting. We've been moving the middle school around. We've been, first putting it with the secondary school, and now onto the site with the elementary school. And actually looking back into Emory's history, even during the 1970s, there was a time when the middle school was shuttered and the middle schoolers were located on the secondary school campus, on the high school campus. But again, I don't think that the solution is to consolidate everyone onto one site, and part of that has to do with the kind of ambitions we have as a city. I think we actually really want a lot of things for our students and for our community, and I fear that this space is already oversubscribed. That we've outgrown it before we've even gotten there. I also really enjoy having places for youth throughout our city. They shouldn't just be in one spot. They're part of the fabric of Emeryville. Those schools anchor neighborhoods, and so whatever uses we come up with, I hope that there's a way for youth to be able to own that space, because I don't think that they have enough dedicated space that is their own. I'm looking forward to getting the pool back. That's a priority of mine. We have very few kind of public recreation facilities, and I've heard from many constituents that they're anxious to get the pool back online. I look forward to having a library. We're one of the most well-educated cities here in the East Bay. I know that a library would be a wonderful and vibrant place for our communities, and so I'm looking forward to that. I also have difficulty with the amount of money that the city is spending on this project. It's $20 million, and I understand the need for new facilities. My children attend these schools every day. My children go to the recreation center every day, and I would like to see something better than portables as well. But I'm also responsible for thinking about the way that we spend taxpayer funds. And I think that $20 million for the privilege of renting space part-time is not good enough. The option to turn the multipurpose room into dedicated space for the community center would come at an additional cost to the city. And then we would have to, if we ever wanted to withdraw from the agreement, return it to its original state. So that would be another expense in order to get dedicated rec space for our students. I also worry about the deficit that our school district has. They have their own financial difficulties, and much of this I will lay at the feet of the state of California. With those difficulties, I worry that we're overstretching with this project. And what that means, in the past, we've actually had a long tradition of partnership in Emeryville, in which the city steps in to help the school district. But after giving over $20 million to this project, we are not going to have that same kind of flexibility. So I hope that the school district is able to fix their structural deficit. I know it's not necessarily the school district's fault, right? This is what is set up to happen in small urban school districts. But they're going to be facing difficulties as well, and I'm worried that we're not going to be able to be the kind of backstop that we always have been in the past. And with that, again, I want to kind of finish where I began, which is the motivations of the electeds around me and hearing from them. Because I believe that they're absolutely genuine in wanting a different situation for our students in Emeryville and wanting something better. And that I appreciate. And I appreciate the many, many long hours that our staff, and I know district staff, has put into this project. It represents a lot of hard work. But when it comes down to it, and I've lost a lot of sleep over this, I cannot vote in support of the project for the reasons that I gave. And I hope that we're able to, again, find common cause and common ground in wanting better things for the youth in particular in our city as we move forward. And with that, I'll call the question.
So what I have is a motion on the floor by Councilmember Atkins, seconded by Councilmember Davis, and this is for 6.1.1, correct?
Yes. One at a time.
One at a time is
Mike
what I
said one at a time.
What I heard. Yes. Okay. So Councilmember Brinkman.
Yes.
Councilmember Davis.
Yes.
Councilmember West.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Atkin.
Aye.
And Mayor Asher.
No.
Move the second resolution.
Well, I already moved both.
That's right.
And you already
Can I
seconded.
just note for the record, the second resolution, we're going to amend the fifth whereas to reflect the correct date that the school board approved the agreement as being August 4th.
Thank you.
As amended. Okay. Councilmember Brinkman.
Yes.
Councilmember Davis.
Yes.
Councilmember West.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Atkin.
Aye.
And Mayor Asher.
No. Okay.
Where's the champagne? Come on.
Top the
I
floor.
hear there's cake downstairs.
Right, I don't know. Ken left early.
Okay, item 6.2.
Thank you, Miguel.
That's it?
I just need to run. Give me a sec. You might need to move the mouse.
Yeah.